A little technical difficulties on our end. Good evening to our listeners and to our viewers. We welcome you to the KMUD News Candidate Forum with those in the bidding for Humboldt County's 4th Supervisorial District. I'm your host, Lauren Schmitt. Humboldt's District 4 includes Eureka, Fairhaven, and Samoa. Residents in those cities and unincorporated towns will vote for one of the following candidates who have been listed in alphabetical order: Natalie Arroyo, Kim Bergel, or Mike Newman, who will serve as the 4th District Supervisor for the next 4 years. Notably, incumbent Virginia Bass is not seeking re-election. The board enacts legislation governing Humboldt County and determines overall policies for county departments, various special districts, and adopts the annual budget and fixes salaries. The board also hears appeals of the Planning Commission decisions and considers general plan amendments. As of 2019, the yearly salary for the position is $95,000. Tonight, local nonprofits will be asking candidates a variety of questions relevant to their mission, and that includes groups: the Eureka chapter of the NAACP, Centro del Pueblo, the Humboldt and Del Norte Central Labor Council, North Coast People's Alliance, Cooperation Humboldt, Healthcare for All, Humboldt Physicians for a National Health Program, the North Coast Environmental Center, Affordable Homeless Housing Alternatives, the Coalition for Responsible Transportation Priorities, Humboldt County Transition Age Youth Collaborative, Humboldt Area Center for Harm Reduction, 350 Humboldt, Queer Humboldt, and the Redwood Coalition for Climate and Environmental Responsibility. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer each question, followed by a 1-minute rebuttal, which would be allotted to each candidate. Candidates who go over their 2-minute time will be muted to ensure equal airtime for all. I would like to note that KMUD News is a neutral entity, and we do not endorse or promote any individual candidate, political party, or ideal. It is our mission to inform, educate, and inspire our listening community. We are coming to you live on KMUD Radio and have a live stream on our KMUD News Facebook page. We do have a full docket this evening. We do invite members of the public to submit questions. If we have extra airtime, you can do so by calling 707-923-3911 or submit those questions on the KMUD News Facebook page. I would like to thank our engineer, Javier Rodriguez, our tech support, Ryan Christensen, our timekeeper, Stella Gherkins, and Caroline Griffin for helping to organize this event that gives the public the opportunity to participate in democracy. And of course, if you appreciate this service that we provide for you at Redwood Community Radio, we ask you to consider making a safe and secure donation on our website, kmud.org. Now we'll start with each candidate and their intros. And we're going to start in reverse alphabetical order. So that's you, Mike Newman, 2 minutes for your intro. Oh, you have to unmute and then we'll start time.
I don't think he can unmute himself.
There, finally did. As I said, I'm not used to using my smartphone for Zoom meetings. Usually it's either my desktop or being in person at a meeting. So thank you for bearing with me on that. And my smartphone here is not so smart, or maybe it's me on this particular device. Thank you, KMUD, for sponsoring this forum tonight. I've been serving this district since 2010, first as a Eureka City Council member, then protecting the public trust with serving on the Measure Z committee, being the first director there, basically being the voice of the people, because I got on there because I wanted to make sure that the tax money was going to be spent as it was voted on, which is public safety, which is very important. I've also been committed to being on the Humboldt County Planning Commission since 2018 with the appointment from Virginia Bass. who, as you said at the first, has decided to step down and not run for county supervisor for 4th District. She did endorse me, and I appreciate her recommendation as being the most qualified person to step into this role. She had said, and I quote, "I can hit the ground running." So with my dual experience on city government as well as then on county, because Planning Commission does take quite a bit of things to take into account with county planning, as well as all of the other things that go with county services. I've been working with and had worked with many of the department heads at the county, such as DHHS.
Oops, sorry, Mike. We have to make sure each candidate gets the same amount of time. I apologize. Kim Bergel, we're going to go to your 2-minute intro and we'll start the clock right now.
Thank you. And thanks for having us tonight. Well, I'm Kim Bergel, and I'm excited to be here. I have been on the Eureka City Council for 7.5 years, but prior to that, I've been in service to my community since I can remember. I grew up here, sold Girl Scout Thin Mints to Mayor Sam Sacco. I've really been involved with all kinds of community service over the years. You know, my time on council has been rich and a wonderful experience. I've had the opportunity to really be in the trenches and meet a lot of people. I get involved with the community. I'm out there. I think it's really important, if you're wanting to know what your community needs, to be out there with them, regardless of their stature or their class or any of that. And so, you know, I have been doing that. I'm really excited and proud of the projects that I've been involved in, that we've accomplished. You know, I spent almost a year and a half down in Palco Marsh, working with people to vacate them and to help them relocate out of the marsh. Those people, many of them are still my friends today, and many doing well, which is really an awesome feeling. You know, I'm a mom. I'm a single mom. I have 2 kids. One's 16 and one's 19 now. They've been with me through my whole council career. And my daughter's in college now, She's studying political science and economics. And my son is just political. He loves debate. That's his favorite thing. I look forward to serving Humboldt County. I've been involved and worked and collaborated with mental health, with the CSET team, go out on ride-alongs with them pretty regularly to see what's going on, because I think it's really difficult to make decisions on items happening when you're not out there seeing it. And so that's what I do. That's what I love. And I hope you'll consider that. Thank you.
In the nick of time, Natalie Arroyo, 2-minute introduction, please. Thank you.
Thank you, and hello to everyone watching this evening. So I believe that I bring the most robust skill set and experience to the position. I currently serve in a nonprofit role in natural resources management. So in that role, I do project management, grant writing, planning. I manage multi-million-dollar projects, and I've brought in more than $45 million in funding into our community over the last 15 years. So I'm used to managing complex, large, multi-year projects, and I've worked with the county on a lot of those over the years. On the city council, of course, I have 8 years of, going on 8 years of government experience and relationship building. I serve as a U.S. Coast Guard Reserve officer and veteran, so I know a lot about maritime relations and our regulations, in our bay, and the needs of our large military family community, as well as leadership within a really hierarchical organization. At Cal Poly Humboldt, I teach undergraduate students about environmental management and conflict resolution in particular, and I serve on a committee there to promote diversity and inclusion. I'm an advocate for fisheries and watershed health, and I help support my husband's family home-based business, play roller derby. I'm a rutabaga queen, and I focus on trails in our community. So lots of empowering things there that I'm really focused on and want to bring to the position. My priorities in particular are more housing, in particular permanent supportive housing for people with unmet needs, behavioral and mental health needs in particular, but housing for all income levels is really sorely needed in our community. And then, of course, I want to contribute to quality of life improvements, and that's really broad, but to me it includes particularly transportation safety for all modes of transportation, supporting our medical sector, beautification in our communities, and public spaces that provide ecosystem services and enjoyment for our community. And then good governance to me means cohesive direction, having process improvements between departments, and being a county where people want to work, live, and play.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We're going to go to our first question from one of our local collaborators, and that's the Coalition for Responsible Transportation Priorities. And I'll throw it over to Ryan.
I'm Colin Fisk, Executive Director of CRTP, the Coalition for Responsible Transportation Priorities. And this question is from CRTP and the North Coast Environmental Center. Humboldt County's Regional Transportation Plan and Comprehensive Action Plan for Energy, as well as the forthcoming Climate Action Plan, all call for significantly reducing the amount of driving in the county. What will you do to ensure that the county meets these adopted targets and reduces the role of cars in our communities?
Okay, we're going to start with you, Natalie Arroyo, 2 minutes.
Wonderful. This topic is near and dear to my heart. So transportation safety and transit are key to what I do every day. So I'm currently the board chair of the Humboldt Transit Authority. And over the last almost 8 years, I've been working with local transit and looking for ways to improve that service and improve the connectivity to other services in our community to make sure that people can not only get around in Humboldt County, but can get to our neighboring counties. Because we are so limited by transportation in Humboldt. We're in this beautiful place, but we're also remote. So it's important for people to be able to get around and to be able to get around in particular to make an alternative choice to driving single driver vehicles. So that's huge, and I'll continue to advocate for the needs of our transit community, including the development of an intermodal transit center in Eureka, in Old Town, something that can serve a variety of modes and provide a hub for people. I'll also support trails. So I've been a huge trails advocate and the former board president of the Humboldt Trails Council. I spent many years on the Trails Council board working diligently for trails in our community, and I'll continue to do that. So we need to complete the 4.25 miles between Eureka and Arcata. That is a top priority to me, but also the Great Redwood Trail offers an amazing opportunity, as well as intercity trails and connectivity improvements like bike lanes and bulb outs and things that support pedestrians and bicyclists in our community. So we need to make those choices safe for people so that folks can make that decision to use an alternative form of transportation where possible. But we also need our roads to be safe for people who are drivers, and there's lots of places in the county where that's necessary. So I certainly hear that. I'm not so oriented towards trails and transit that I can't see the value in roads too. So all transportation modes are definitely necessary in our community, and that includes shipping as well as
Oops, sorry about that, Natalie. Okay, we're gonna same question from the Coalition for Responsible Transportation Priorities. 2 minutes, Kim Bergel.
Well, thank you. I didn't hear all the question because there was something going on. Someone was unmuted. Is there a way to?
Yeah, let me go ahead. I can reiterate that for you. So
Thank you.
This was from Colin Fisk from the Coalition for Responsible Transportation Priorities. Humboldt County's Regional Transportation Plan and Comprehensive Action Plan for Energy, as well as the forthcoming Climate Action Plan, all call for significantly reducing the amount of driving in the county. What will you do to ensure that the county meets these adopted targets and reduce the roles of cars in our community? 2 minutes.
Great. Thank you for repeating that. So I did spend almost 7 years, no, only 6 actually, on the transportation. I'm sorry, I got distracted by the chat. On the Transportation Safety Commission here in Eureka, we worked on a program called Heads Up, which was an opportunity to get people involved in, being safe on the roads. Obviously, there's a lot of work to be done with that. On that commission, I learned a lot about warrants and ways that we can improve our roads, traffic studies and those types of things. The thing is that we live in a beautiful region, and I love the fact that we can use our trails so freely. And when my kids were little, this is how I got on the Transportation Safety Commission. I actually used to ride them around on my bike and I have my kids in the trailer, and my son was on the ride along or tag along. And I really got a good idea about what traffic safety is in our community. And I'll tell you, I will work vigilantly to make that happen. I think, you know, the program that we have now, you know, Eyes on the Road is one way to get at that. You know, signage, all these different things, working on the safety on the trail. So there are, you know, the trails are beautiful, but continuing to work on the trails, and mental health's a huge piece of that as well. Just continuing to move forward in the way that we're going. And, you know, I love the idea of, you know, less vehicles, but I think it's going to be a process. I think, you know, we've been driving cars forever, and that having the opportunity to kind of ease into that for some folks is going to make it a lot easier on them in the long term. I do support public transportation too. I've also ridden on it. And I hope that we can get it from, you know, all the way down to Garberville and over to Willow Creek. So that's always nice to go to Willow Creek on the bus. Thank you.
Okay, Mike Newman, same question, 2 minutes.
I'm trying to use my desktop now. Phone is off now. No. Is there technical stuff that somebody can help me get this off here? Take me off of that one.
Mike, I think if you log out on your phone, that should work.
I think
That's what I'm going to try to do here. There. I think that's got it. How is that?
Perfect. Okay, thank you so much.
Better now?
Again, how do you plan to reduce the amount of driving in the county and meet those goals outlined by things like the Climate Action Plan? 2 minutes.
Well, I believe that there needs to be some balance. Cars are very important here in our rural neck of the woods. There is going to be a hard time trying to get more of the transportation up here with, say, buses on a regular basis, and that we just can't do without vehicles, personal vehicles. Although changes in the types of vehicles will be coming along here. And I don't want to hamstring any new innovations and just say electric cars, because when you put it into one perspective, you're not taking into account, or if you're, you know, saying that you have to do away with gas and just have electric, that keeps things too much one way without innovation being available. So I am all for looking at alternatives and bringing the use of vehicles down, or the use of alternative energy up. And I think there are many things on the horizon that we should not limit ourselves to. Trails are definitely good. I caution folks when you're doing trails within the city with private party ownership. You know, when you're neighboring up against the trail with your private property and people along there, there is that right to privacy as well as for personal protection. So I love the trail around the bay. I was helpful on that on the city council before and after, as well as I would like to see the trail completion around the bay completely.
Okay, thank you. And we are going to go to the 1 minute rebuttals and start with you, Natalie Arroyo.
Wonderful, thank you. I think it's really important to note that there are other innovations going on in our community that can really add to the mix of, greenhouse gas reduction opportunities and transportation opportunities. We really are seeing a lot of funding from the state for improvements to communities, including, improvements to trails, to bike corridors, and pedestrian infrastructure in our community. So we need to be forward thinking and taking advantage of that, including implementing all the elements of our regional transportation plan. We also have the opportunity with Humboldt Transit Authority to switch to hydrogen fueled buses over time and solar, and we've made big strides of that in that to fuel our operations through a mix of alternative energy sources. And then the city of Eureka has moved towards electrification of our fleet and slowly is replacing a lot of our fleet vehicles with electric vehicles. So I think we could do that on the county level too, and I look forward to the opportunity to do so.
Bergel.
I really don't have much to add on this one, except for that I really hope that we can move forward in ways where we don't have people getting run over in Broadway. And I think we're working on that right now. Just really trying to advocate for safety for pedestrians and cyclists, as well as vehicles. And I think that through campaigns and through community collaboration, because it's going to take all of us to reduce this kind of problem, that we can make a difference.
Mike Newman, 1 minute.
Thank you. Alternative use is very important, as well as bringing people together as much as possible on solutions. Collaboration is important. If we're going to go with more electrical use, electrical cars, buses, in that way, we need to beef up our electrical system and make sure that there are fail-safe methods so that should something happen with the grid, and we're familiar with how the grid is in perilous ways at times because we are isolated here. We do need to have alternative energy sources, and that is on the horizon as well. We could have had some before, but electrification and grid is very important.
Okay, thank you all. We're going to go to our next question from our local nonprofit, and that is the Affordable Homeless Housing Alternatives. And we'll go to Ryan's screen.
Good evening. Thank you for participating in the forum tonight. My name is Nezzy Wade, and I am the president of the board for Affordable Homeless Housing Alternatives. And my question is precipitated by the fact that we don't have affordable housing in Humboldt County. Affordable sheltering could be implemented locally. What actions will you take to support the implementation of the alternatives of safe parking, legal campsites, and tiny house villages for our unhoused community members?
Okay, and Kim Bergel, we're going to start with you on this one. 2 minutes, and we'll start the clock.
Thank you. So this is a great question, and this is something that's definitely been a need for quite a long time. I believe that working for housing for all types of people is going to be really important. You know, Nezzy and we've had this conversation about tiny house villages, and we've had it over the last almost 8 years that we've been on council. But in Eureka, there's really not a place for build out for such a thing. And so I'm hopeful with the county, with the more land and more ideas, we can be able to actually facilitate something like that. I have hesitancy about a tent camp and the safe parking. I believe that they would have to be managed very well as have a manager that would be a nonprofit that would kind of remedy those situations. We've seen problems with the Arcata safe parking, just with trash. I found out recently that they have hired someone to take care of that, which is really important. But housing is something that everybody needs. I mean, you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that's one of those needs that we have to have for feeling safe. And so moving forward, I believe it's important to look at all kinds of housing, to think out of the box. And that's one thing I really appreciate about the last almost 8 years on council is we really have done that as a council. You know, we've considered things like containers. We've considered things like housing on parking lots, just outside of the box things, ADUs, a lot of things that wouldn't normally be in our wheelhouse to take care of. But here we are, we're doing it. And, you know, I'm moving forward. I'm hopeful that we can continue to build on our housing stock and create opportunities for people and streamline the permitting to make it a lot easier for folks too. I think that's very important. So to your question, Nezzy, I would say that I think that the land use outside of the city is going to be a lot easier to handle. Thank you.
Time. Okay, Mike Newman, same question, 2 minutes.
Is it possible when you call on one of the participants to go ahead and unmute them yourself? I'm having to do several things, but I had a question from Nezzy. She said safe parking and then 2 other things. What were they?
I believe that was safe parking, safe camping, and legal campsite and tiny house villages, specifically for those who are currently unhoused.
Okay. So as being on the Humboldt Housing and Homeless Coalition since 2011, I've been involved in this as much as possible. It is important to me to make sure that there is housing here and it's affordable. The problem that we've had up here is the money, the cost for it. The concept of tiny houses, villages is good. We have a few of those types of things here where there are shared kitchens and living rooms in some of the older houses here in Eureka. I think that could be looked at for rezoning in certain areas. It would have to be managed well, just as safe parking could be worked out when there is management done in the correct way. As a member of the Planning Commission, safe parking came before us to make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. And I believe safe parking, when it's managed well with a nonprofit or a church, because that was part of the prerequisites, a religious organization, that they would be able to manage it and keep it down to 20 or less individuals or groups, 2 couples together in that area, because safe is safe. And if you just have a car, that's a good way to start for safe parking. And then all the other alternatives along with permitting.
Okay, thank you very much. Natalie Arroyo, 2 minutes from AHA's question.
Great, thank you. So I think we need a lot of these alternatives, and I appreciate Nezzy's question. A lot of this will look like public-private partnerships to explore pilot programs or efforts that we haven't tried before. I know in Eureka we've had a lot of attempts that have been successful and a lot of, frankly, a lot of things that weren't successful that we tried and learned from. So I think we need well-managed projects that are really strong in their partnerships. Safe parking, I know the county is exploring this. I want to continue to explore it and learn from the lessons that Arcata has experienced. They're implementing this right now. So I think there's a lot to be learned from what our neighboring communities are doing. When it comes to tiny houses, particularly tiny houses on wheels, which offer a new alternative, I know the county has really been innovative so far in embracing this, and the city is looking at doing that. So I think there are going to be some lessons learned there by the time anyone new gets into office. I've been meeting with the working group of folks who are researching that opportunity to talk about it in great depth. So I really appreciated that opportunity. I'll bring the political will to move forward with more housing development, including crisis care housing in Humboldt. I know that the Board of Supervisors is currently funded to explore alternatives for crisis care for people who leave our Semper Virens facility and need somewhere else to go next. So making sure that we have the political will to move forward when we do have funding and opportunities like that is really important. And then exploring incentives for developers is really important. I know, Arcata is looking at an infrastructure financing district to use tax incentives and using alternative materials to help abate the costs of material costs that are really high right now. Those are all worthy of exploration. So I think there's some long-term solutions, some short-term solutions, and all of it will require a lot of intentionality and political will.
Thank you very much. And Kim Bergel, we're going to give you a 1-minute rebuttal.
Well, I would just say that housing is a critical piece of the solution in our region. I think about, time spent out on the street, hanging out and just trying to connect with people that don't have houses and what their needs are. And making those connections so that when the housing is available, they're willing to come and be a part of that. And I think something critical that needs to be spoken about housing is the wraparound services as well. That's an important piece in getting people stabilized in housing. You can't put somebody in a house that's been on the streets for 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, and expect them to just know what to do. It's a very scary and terrifying thing, and the supports need to be there.
Okay, thank you very much. Mike Newman, 1 minute.
Thank you. Yes, there needs to be more work with a supportive position on all of this. I work with Connie Beck. I work on the St. Joseph Providence Community Benefit Board, and we've been putting together housing from the motels, and it's all managed very well. You'll be seeing more projects on the Humboldt Inn, which was the Royal Inn, and it's going to be put together with more management in it with Providence's help. It does take private and government help to put all of this together. Managed care is important, but I think what is more important is trying to get the state involved in more of the mental health portion, to where we don't have to.
Oh, sorry about that. And Natalie Arroyo, 1 minute rebuttal.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree that we have the opportunity to really transform rundown properties, existing hotels and motels, and we've seen some success with that in Humboldt County. And I think we have more opportunity for that, particularly here in our county seat, Eureka, where we all see it every day. We know the properties that need some love and really need some management, and I think those offer excellent interim opportunities for people for really safe and supportive housing that meets their needs. The tiny homes on wheels, I think those offer opportunities, but people also have to embrace it in their communities. So there needs to be more dialogue around changes like that will affect the way our neighborhoods look and feel. And then, really bringing to bear important and supportive state relationships, seeking funding from the state during this time. It's a really good time to be looking for funding for projects like this. There's a lot of emphasis.
Sorry about that. We're going to go to our next question, and that comes from Cooperation Humboldt.
I'm Lorna Bryant of Cooperation Humboldt. Participatory budgeting is a democratic process in which community members directly decide how to spend part of a public budget. By giving communities real decision-making power in a collaborative process, participatory budgeting can strengthen ties between citizens and officials. Earlier this year, the city of Arcata successfully conducted a participatory budgeting pilot project in partnership with Cooperation Humboldt. If elected, will you commit to working with community agencies to employ a participatory budgeting pilot project at the county level? Thank you.
Okay, and we start this one with you, Mike Newman, 2 minutes.
Thank you, Lorna. I appreciate that question. It is very important for the public to participate and know where the budget goes and what is going on with it. Humboldt County, I know when I was on Measure Z, had started more of a public process where it was brought out. I think we can get it better. We can work towards that. I would be interested to see what has been done here locally, as well as then on the rest of the state. I would be all for bringing the budget out to the public and taking in as much as we can on the information there. It sounds very interesting and innovative. I am not against innovation. I am for transparency. I want people to see where the money is going and how then we can spend it. So I would agree. Let's see that.
Okay, thank you very much. Same question. We go to you, Natalie Arroyo, 2 minutes.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah, I followed the process with that participatory budgeting project in Arcata really closely. And one thing I want to notice, of course, Cooperation Humboldt was integral to helping that happen. There's also a community group, the Community United of North Arcata, that helped make that happen, led by a lot of Latinx residents. So that's really cool to see. And I would love to see more participatory budgeting in Humboldt. I mean, the County of Humboldt has a $500 million plus budget. And while a lot of that is dedicated to specific objectives and statutorily needs to be set, dedicated to those objectives, I think there's opportunity there to involve our community members more. I've been to many of the county's budget roadshow meetings before, prior to the pandemic, and those were a good start, but I think we can give people more opportunities to make the decisions themselves about portions of the budget. So as much as that can be done in our county, I would really look forward to that. And I think it gives people that civic education that they otherwise might not be getting from the kind of generic format of public meetings.
Thank you very much. And Kim Bergel, 2 minutes.
Thank you. So I'm all for bringing people into the process. Any way that we can get, if this is one way that we can get, I think that it absolutely is important. Every voice is important, and it's important that we also address things that all people in the community want to look at. This is the first time that I've heard of participatory budgeting, but I do appreciate and would love to have more information on it. The idea of just engaging more of the population in what's going on in our community is really important to me. That's how we grow. That's how we work together. That's how we build a strong community, is by being involved together. And so this could be a very important piece to that. So I would love to have more information and carry on from there. Thank you.
Mike Newman, you have 1 minute if you'd like to add anything.
My mouse is not being cooperative. No, I don't have much to add to that, except that, as I said before, I would be open to taking a look at that more to get the community involved as much as possible.
Natalie Arroyo, 1 minute.
Thank you. Yeah, I think something we've seen in Eureka that I've noticed is that there's often a really low level of community engagement when it comes to our public budgeting process. And that is one of the most important things that government does ultimately, is make decisions about how to allocate our resources and our hard-earned community tax dollars, to public projects. So we're really doing some important work there. And I think participatory budgeting, which is where people are given a portion of funds and they get to decide how it's allocated. And the government agency says, yes, we will allow you to make all of the decisions about how this is allocated, and provide some sideboards potentially, but such as an amount of money, that really empowers people to understand the civic process in a new and different way and educate themselves. So I love the opportunity, and I'm really excited about doing that in the future.
Kim Bergel, anything you'd like to add within 1 minute?
So I would just say, just hearing what I've heard, I love the idea of people having the opportunity to have a certain amount of money to decide how to spend it. That is really exciting. And I think that could generate a lot of interest from the public, which again is critical for a healthy community. We got to all be involved to make a better community. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And to save time, I'm going to summarize this question. This one was submitted from Hatcher, the Humboldt Area Center for Harm Reduction. How will you support life-saving services of harm reduction, overdose prevention, and advocacy for people who use drugs and or for people experiencing homelessness? And are you wanting to continue to push that narrative to convict people who sell fentanyl to be charged with murder if that can be linked to an overdose? This one, we start with you. 2 minutes, Natalie Arroyo.
Thank you. That's a really complex question. So first of all, I think harm reduction is critically important to the community to prevent the transmission of disease. That is why it exists, first and foremost. It also serves the benefit of helping people to establish relationships to then get into other services and make healthy choices in their lives. So while it's not always the most politically popular or understandable approach even to the everyday folks in our community, I do think it's important that we continue to have those disease reduction services in our community. I want to be clear that the city of Eureka, while we have some harm reduction services in our community, we're not a funder of harm reduction. We are a partner, as are many public partners in the process of distributing these services. And so it does happen within city limits, as it happens within county, jurisdiction and other city limits. But it's not something that we directly fund or that we directly manage. So it's certainly something that the state has shown that it's a high priority to enact. And, I continue to see the value in that, while also understanding that we need to address concerns like needle litter in our communities. When it comes to the prosecution of folks who deal fentanyl, that's a tough one. I think there's more to unpack there. It's always difficult to, the rise of fentanyl has been rapid and, I'm out of time. Okay. And we've seen a lot of impact in our community. So, I want to talk more about that. I don't feel prepared to give an answer about how we'll prosecute fentanyl related, distribution. So while I think murder is extreme for instances related to overdose, I'd certainly want to talk more about that and understand all of the sides of the issue.
Excellent. And Kim Bergel, same question, 2 minutes.
Thank you. So I would say that I absolutely support harm reduction as a disease to reduce disease. I think it's critical, though, when we're working with harm reduction to have the proper agency running that. And, in my time on council, I worked with a particular group and I worked with them for quite a long time, even had mediated sessions, working to find solutions for them and the neighborhood. And when that didn't work out, I worked with the neighbors and worked with them and the city to find a different alternative, which is now only mobile. It's not, there's no brick and mortar anymore. That being said, the opportunity for connection with harm reduction is so important. These are people that are just left out and marginalized in our community regularly. And to have those connections when they're ready is very important. When you're talking about this whole business of fentanyl, my son had a friend whose mom OD'd 2 weeks ago on fentanyl. And she wasn't a drug user, regular. And what I want to say about that is that I think it's a slippery slope. So it's hit home, I guess is what I want to say. And what I would still say about that is that it's a very slippery slope, charging murder for that. I'm not clear. I think that we'd have to have a lot more conversation regarding that moving forward. But harm reduction saves lives regularly.
Mike Newman, same question, 2 minutes.
Well, harm reduction has many different terms in the area. Trying to bring reduction for harm, we also have to look at the general public. The majority of taxpayers are not users. There has to be responsible use. If there's going to be needles given out, they need to be exchanged one-to-one. I do believe that Education is very important for those users, that they need to have services available for stepping out of the problem that they're in. That is so important. You can never tell when somebody is at the end of their rope or towards the end to where they've gone down as far as they can go, and they need and they're willing to take a look and get help. And that's part of what you're talking about there with harm reduction. But with the needle litter that we had in our community and still have to a certain degree, I think it's important to keep in mind the children in our area and just our neighborhoods. The litter that has come about because of needles being distributed without getting them back is very important to keep in mind when you have any type of distribution there of those type of things. Harm reduction is important when it's coupled with education as well as rehabilitation of some degree, because not every method will work for everyone. We are all individuals, and it does take many different ways.
Okay, thank you very much. And Natalie Arroyo, let's give you 1 minute for a rebuttal.
Thank you. So I want to be clear, we have county-based services that provide needle exchange, and we also have community-based services that provide needle exchange in the nonprofit community. So, we're talking about both here potentially, and, both of those have their place and provide services to many people in our community. The city and the county have both pushed for, and I will say the city has been a leader in pushing for funding justice when it comes to opioid manufacturers and distributors, and making sure that we are compensated for the impacts that has had on our community. And I want to see those funds go to help people transform their lives and to continue to destigmatize the choices that to ultimately get people into services so that they're able to transform their lives.
Kim Bergel, 1 minute rebuttal.
So the first thing I want to say is that to say that addiction doesn't impact taxpayers is ignorant. It's ignorant. There are people across our population, housed, unhoused, many people have this experience. And I don't think they grew up thinking I'm going to be a drug addict and lose my family and lose my house and lose my, integrity and lose my self-worth. And I think that's really important to recognize. When we're talking with the CDC, Heidi Mesner and I went down to Sacramento. One of the things we learned is that the best practice is not 1-for-1. It's not 1-for-1 because there's a lot of barriers to that. I have so much more to say and I don't have time, but give me a call. Be happy to talk about it.
Mike Newman, 1 minute.
Thank you. And when I talk about harm reduction being important, it is important. But I do believe that it does touch many lives. Those in families are the ones that are most affected. Those families are devastated with these addictions that come about of all types: alcohol, drugs of all types, painkillers. It is very tough. But in particular, when I hear harm reduction, it's mostly about the needles and the needle litter. And I think that's what the public sees and hears. Now, I know it is a public health hazard to have those laying around, especially for our children.
Okay, just in the nick of time there. We are going to go to one more question from one of our sponsors before we throw it back to the studio for some brief top of the hour business. This question comes from the Humboldt Del Norte Central Labor Council. And we'll go to you, Ryan.
Good evening, supervisor candidates. Thank you for taking the time to come to our forum and listen to our questions. My name is John Fromm, and I'm the president of the Humboldt and Del Norte Central Labor Council. My question today is, Taxes have become a very important issue for the regulated cannabis market. Would you support efforts underway that could give local tax credits for cannabis businesses that meet certain labor standards? For example, having a collective bargaining agreement, a state certified training program, a local hire preference? If so, how would you implement such a program? Thank you so much and have a great evening.
It's okay. Okay. And we'll start this question with Kim Bergel, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. So I would say with our cannabis businesses currently and the struggles that are going on, that tax credits and that type of thing are going to be really important. My understanding is that cannabis workers have been paid very well in the past. And, you know, the thing with the legalization has kind of brought that down. I think we need to work on regulations that are fair. You know, we need to get rid of things like the tax for growing. That just to me is a ridiculous thing. But to work with these people to have better opportunities to pay their people. And if tax credit is the way to do that, then that's one thing that we can do. I also, I just feel like, you know, we're all new and we're just navigating this. So if the people that are cannabis workers would like to be unionized, absolutely let them do that. But I don't know that forcing that kind of an issue would be an important piece of the puzzle right now.
Okay, Mike Newman, we go to you, 2 minutes.
Thank you. I believe that we do need to restructure the look at taxation of cannabis, to put it like farming or agricultural goods. So when you're selling stuff, you're getting taxed on it, not just your potential for the square footage that you are permitted to operate in. It is important to keep this look with the cannabis industry, with farming, just like a regular business. People have choices about unionization. I don't know exactly what the question was there. I would like to have a conversation, but when you force people to do certain things, that's not about choice. America is freedom of choice within parameters, and that's why we have rules and regulations. And part of that is, you know, when we have rules and regulations, that's when we're seeing the problems with our jail and people getting out and with a slap on the wrist. There is no repercussions or responsibility for their actions. I know I've delved off, but I think it's very important. It's the same concept. You keep rules in place, make them fair. I'm done. Thank you.
Natalie Arroyo, 2 minutes.
Yeah, this is an interesting and exciting opportunity for California. I mean, we really are the only state that extends protections for agricultural workers through unionization in the way that we do. And so I'm supportive of this idea. I think I have questions about the mechanisms and I'd want to discuss it further. But, you know, in broad strokes, I would say I support unionization and workers' rights, and particularly those in the cannabis industry, you know, which has been plagued by a lot of workers' rights issues in the past. So when I think about the cannabis market, I think part of the challenge with a tax incentive, whether it's some kind of tax increment financing or something else, is that the market's so volatile right now. So, you know, we can't bank on future taxes and growth necessarily in this moment in time to be able to, you know, seek financing, like freeze the taxes where they're at and seek financing to help with, you know, incentives, that kind of thing. So, you know, the type of model that's been used for the EIFD or something else wouldn't, in my mind, work in this industry because it's still too volatile and it's too hard to project. But I am open to discussing it more, and I'm really excited about the prospect of talking about codifying workers' rights and the right to unionize in the cannabis industry and doing whatever the county can to support that.
Okay, Kim Bergel, 1 minute.
Thank you. Something I did neglect to mention is that I think that we need to really work to protect these smaller farmers. We've got people coming in now that are taking over. And, as I was out canvassing, I met a woman who's going to be selling her property because they can't afford the permitting fees, the taxes, all of those things that are being brought on to them right now. And I don't know if this would just be something else to just add more to what's happening now as far as the frustration and being overwhelmed. So though I do support the idea of freedom of choice, that if the folks want to unionize, they should be allowed to. I don't know that the timing is correct.
Mike Newman, 1 minute.
As I spoke briefly on unionization and looking that way for agricultural workers is something that can be looked at and explored more because of the past in regular agricultural fields throughout California. There has been some misguided owners taking advantage of workers. I don't think straight across unionization works to that degree, but there has to be rights given.
Exactly.
And I think I would be open to looking towards that type of thing to make sure that people are not taken advantage of, especially workers just starting out.
Okay, Nick of time. And Natalie Arroyo, 1 minute, same question.
Thank you. I mean, these are part of the benefit of legalization that I saw was that these are now legal businesses held to the same legal standards as every business. And so, supporting OSHA requirements and all of the things that are required in the workplace is important. And unfortunately, because a lot of folks are really remote, it's difficult to do that. So I understand how important it is to have unionization as an option for cannabis workers. And I support, of course I support family farmers. I lived my first more than a year in Humboldt in Petrolia, where, I would say in the mid 2000s, it was the heart of the cannabis sector. And, I experienced that day-to-day life alongside a lot of folks who relied on that as an industry. But I also support those who've been historically marginalized in the cannabis community, and that includes a lot of the workers.
Okay, thank you all. We're going to take a brief pause as we are right at the top of the hour. So I want to throw it back to our engineer here in the KMUD studios, to you, Javier Rodriguez. We'll be right back.
Support for labor history on KMUD comes from NorCal Mechanical LLC with 40 years of experience building and maintaining sustainable living environments in Humboldt and Mendocino counties. They offer design, service, and repair of heating and cooling units, commercial refrigeration, indoor air quality products, efficient water-saving plumbing, and fire sprinkler systems. NorCal Mechanical can be reached at 707-223-2100 or norcalmechanical.com. Volunteers are invited to a work party to enhance native plant gardens at Black Sands Beach and Shelter Cove on Sunday, May 22nd, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Sponsored by Friends of the Lost Coast and BLM King Range National Conservation Area. This monthly volunteer service event rotates between 3 popular public access sites in Shelter Cove. Meet at 10 a.m. at the Black Sands Beach parking area located at 856 Beach Road. Be sure to dress in layers and bring gloves. Tools are provided. For more info or to RSVP, email justin@lostcoast.org. It's 7 o'clock. You got to tune to KMUD Garberville, 91.1 FM and HD1, KMUE Eureka, 88.1 FM and HD1, KLAI Laytonville, 90.3 FM, on the web at kmud.org, and at FM Translator, K258BQ Shelter Cove, 99.5. According to the DHHS, the best way to protect yourself and your family from COVID-19 is by getting vaccinated or boosted when eligible. Health officials continue to stress that vaccination and booster shots can reduce hospitalizations and deaths, as well as reducing impacts of the virus to schools and businesses. Vaccinations are available free of charge, and appointments can be made at myturn.ca.gov. For more information, call Humboldt County Public Health 707-445-6201. This message is brought to you by the Humboldt County Department of Health and Human Services. And this program is supported in part by Eel River Realty, specializing in Southern Humboldt homes and property. Eel River Realty is located in Miranda and can be reached at 707-223-5583. A search of all Humboldt County listings can be found at www.eelriverrealty.com.
Okay, thank you so much, Javier Rodriguez, volunteering to engineer here for our candidate forum. And good evening. If you are just tuning in, I want to remind you that you're tuned into the KMUD News Candidate Forum with those in the bidding for Humboldt County's 4th Supervisorial District. I'm your host, Lauren Schmitt, and I am joined by the following candidates who have been listed in alphabetical order: Natalie Arroyo, Kim Bergel, and Mike Newman. Thus far, each candidate has been given 2 minutes to answer questions, followed by a 1-minute rebuttal, which is allotted to each candidate. Candidates who go over that 2-minute time frame will be muted to ensure equal airtime. I also want to remind our listeners that KMUD is a neutral entity, and we do not endorse or promote any individual candidate, political party, or ideal. It is our mission to inform, educate, and inspire our listening community. We are coming to you live from KMUD here at our Redway studio, and we do have a live stream, a video stream on our KMUD News Facebook page. And if you've missed the first hour of this event, you can find it on our archives at kmud.org. We're going to go to our next question, which comes from 350 Humboldt. I wish it was this.
Hi, my name is Deborah Dukes and I represent 350 Humboldt, a climate action group. Please share your thoughts regarding the draft Humboldt Regional Climate Action Plan, CAP, that was released to the public April 7th. What changes will you suggest to improve it during the EIR process? How will you encourage Humboldt County's adherence to the CAP when it is finally adopted? Thanks very much.
Okay, and Mike Newman, we're going to start this off with you. 2 minutes.
Thank you. As in most everything that I look at when it comes before the Planning Commission, I need to get information. I don't have enough information about this. I am not knowing on each side the pros and cons on everything that is being proposed. So I would hesitate to throw out any opinions at this point in time. I know that part of what I saw a little bit in there is, if I remember correctly, where there is dates put on for putting to all electric. Maybe I'm wrong. I've been getting quite a bit of information lately. Besides my regular Planning Commission stuff, I've got my regular work stuff, and I don't have enough time to read and have a personal life at this point. So this is, I'm not at risk, or I'm not at a point where I can render any opinion, except for I know that we need to put action plans into place, but I think that those action plans need to not go towards one type of alternative, is what I'm going to say there. Thank you.
Okay, same question from 350 Humboldt, 2 minutes, Natalie Arroyo.
Thank you. I'm really excited to see the draft of the Climate Action Plan, and I've been taking the time to review it over the last few weeks and really enjoying looking at it. So There's a couple of key areas that it identifies, and I would summarize those as really transportation changes and forest management and carbon sequestration. And both of those, thankfully, are right in my wheelhouse. So I'm happy to say that I'm really, I'm happy to support both of those areas and what the climate action plan outlines. And when it comes to transportation changes, I've spoken to that already, but I look to opportunities to increase transit, to electrify fleets and vehicles, to increase charging stations, and to look at all modes of transit as supported and valid on our roadways, and the engineering that it's required to make those a reality. And then when it comes to forest management and carbon sequestration, it's preventing wildfire, and it's also restoring and maintaining forests. So I think that's incredibly important. When it comes to changes I would like to see, I'm really excited about Appendix F, the consistency checklist, and I just want to see that fleshed out more. That to me is where the rubber meets the road, is how can we ensure that our CAP is consistent with our, really robust state plans, and, making sure there are the tools to track this in a complex government agency. So making sure that we have good data and accountability measures is critically important.
Kim Bergel, same question, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Well, first I want to say that climate change and sea level rise are real. They really are real. And that's important. So I am not a scientist. I'm not an expert on climate change. However, I do support science, and I do support what the experts are saying. I did take a chance to look at part of this climate action plan. It's pretty large and rather robust. And so for me, I am willing to do the work. I need to be educated, and I'm willing to do so. And I'm willing to do the work. That's what I do. I do the work. I get in there, I get things done, and I will do that on this. I know that we have a short timeline, that there's a lot at risk, and in our region and just all over. I have 2 kids. It's really important. They talk about this kind of thing regularly. And so it's really important that we continue to look at actions that we can take in the short term and the long term to make these impacts and make these differences. We see it all the time with the king tides and things that are happening in our region. So please, I would love to continue working on this. And
Okay, Mike Newman, we're going to give you a 1-minute rebuttal.
I do my homework on things when they're put before me. Some of the things I am not as up on until I have more information put in front of me. I'm looking at it right now, perusing it. I remember seeing some of this in some of the public meetings before. And I was interested to see exactly what was going to be recommended. I have not had a time to look through it, but I know that I will be looking through it more closely and rendering some opinions more in the future.
Thank you. Natalie Arroyo, 1 minute.
Thank you. When it comes to climate change, we have so much work to do, and there's so many areas to focus on. So, I appreciate that the Climate Action Plan really focused on a few areas where we can move the needle, so to speak. And I know there's more than that. There's safe access to birth control and education. There's food waste reduction. There's managing refrigerants in our community, which is one of the leading causes of, greenhouse gases, and livestock management, as well as power generation projects. So when it comes to, opportunities to create green energy in our community, I think we have a lot of those, and I'm looking forward to being able to move forward with them, as well as food production in our area that serves our local community. So there's so much to do in that area, and it's really exciting. So, I know it's kind of daunting, but I think there's also a lot of opportunity.
Kim Bergel, 1 minute.
so I'd like to thank all of the people that put this together. And I'm really grateful and thankful that we have experts that are working on this. I think moving forward that we have an opportunity to work together to make the changes. You know, we also need to be looking into our water with the drought and things like that that are happening. There's a lot of different, as I've heard here tonight, there's a lot of different components that we need to look at. And I look forward to teasing those out and to doing them project by project, and sometimes more than one project at a time. But again, it has to do with working together to make this stuff happen. It's not going to happen with 5 people sitting up at the dais. We need the community involved in this type of thing. So thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll go to our next question, which was submitted by Centro del Pueblo, and I do believe they had a guest speaker. Ryan, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Board of Supervisors candidates. My name is Charmaine Lawson. I am the mother of David Josiah Lawson. My son was a student at Humboldt State University. My son was studying criminology. My son on April 15th was viciously murdered 5 years ago. Since my son murdered, I have traveled back and forth from Southern California to Northern California, seeking justice for my son. I have met with city leaders, and yet I'm still here without justice. I've met with a community who is mourning as well as I am, because they too are enduring the injustice that my family has endured for the last 5 years. We have murdered and missing Indigenous people. We have BIPOC people who are hurting because of the injustice in Humboldt County. We have elected officials who are not doing their jobs. They're sweeping injustice underneath the rug. They belong to a group that's called the Good Old Gal, Good Old Boys Club. And we want to make sure that you're not a part of that club. We want to make sure that you stand for justice. You stand for social justice. You stand for people of color. You stand for the voiceless. In June, on June 7th, we will have a new district attorney. We want to know, how will you work with the new district attorney to ensure that the people of color, on June 7th, we will have a new district attorney. We want to make sure, we want to know, how will you work with the new district attorney to ensure that justice is being served?
Okay, and Natalie Arroyo, we send that your way. 2 minutes.
Thank you. Those are powerful words. And I've always moved to hear from Charmaine Lawson about the death of her son and the murder that's still unsolved. So, you know, I would say when it comes to working collaboratively with the new district attorney, I really see the opportunity to conduct an independent audit to really review the case one more time, maybe not just one more time, but at least one more time really thoroughly, and to unpack everything that happened and look for new leads. So there are many more people who were witnesses that night who have not come forward. If there's the opportunity to go through the case files one more time and look for any missing information, I think that is absolutely well warranted. And I know I've heard some of the district attorney candidates talk about that as a next step. So I will work closely with them to enact that. I would say when it comes to supporting Black, Indigenous, and people of color in our community, there's a lot more work we need to do, but I am proud to have been part of some changes in Humboldt that I think are really palpable when it comes to changing the culture and celebrating Black, Indigenous, and people of color in our community. I think we've shown that in Eureka, and we have the opportunity to show that more in the county. And I think this has turned, Cal Poly Humboldt's attention to the matter of supporting students of color in a new and different way. I teach there, and I have a lot of students of color, many of whom say that they take my class because I'm the only Latinx professor they've had the opportunity to learn from. And that means a lot to me. So, there is power in seeing people who resemble you that you look up to in your community. So I think that's really incredibly important to continue to see here. And we need to celebrate people as well as pursue justice.
Bergel, 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Charmaine, when I hear you speak, it moves me. It moves me as a mother. I just can't even imagine what you've been going through. But what I can say is that I really appreciate your strength and your conviction to continue to move this forward and fight for this. It's very inspiring. What I would say is that, you know, I think that with the new DA that we can work to hold oversight hearings. Unfortunately, as a supervisor, we really don't have a lot of control over what the DA does or does not do. However, we do have opportunity to make influence and to bring more attention to this matter. And then we can also look at, you know, meeting with the university officials to discuss more of the things that folks are facing. This is an incredible injustice. It really is devastating for our community. And I do work as much as I can for justice. I think it's a critical piece of community is that people work together and come forward would be great to resolve some of these very difficult and unfair issues.
Thank you. Mike Newman, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Injustice is one of those things that is not good for anybody, and I really feel for the family there of all that they've gone through. Their son was sent away to a college, to a university here in Humboldt. It happens around. I'm at a loss because losing a son, I just can't imagine the heartbreak that has gone through. The family there fighting for that, I would be willing to look at and influence as much as possible, reopening, looking at all things and urging everybody that did witness in some form or fashion to come forward with what was seen and heard during that whole thing. Any color of your skin, I am colorblind. I have friends of color, Latino, Black, Asian.
30 seconds.
We're all people. We all bleed red. We are human beings. And it's tough having lost a loved one like that. And I would work as much as possible to bring out the facts. As a supervisor, you can just influence because the law is the one that is guiding the whole thing there, but I would be happy to help.
Okay, Natalie Arroyo, 1 minute.
Thank you. You know, your question wasn't just about the case of your son. It was about what it looks like to transform our community to be more just and more inclusive. And I think that we've had a reckoning with that in the last few years, and I wish it had come sooner. In the time that I've been in office, I think it's been really important that we've made transformations in our police department, moving to a community oversight of police practices board, conducting an independent audit into our our agency's, activities to make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can to serve the community well, forming an alternative response team to support mental health calls. And then, I know that as a region, we're seeing more attention paid to the deaths of or the missing and murdered Indigenous women in our community, and collaborative relationships with law enforcement between tribal governments and other local governments is really critically important. So
Sorry about that. Kim Bergel, 1 minute.
Thank you. I would say that, one of the things that, so how am I going to say this? I'm just going to say it. This is a very sad situation, but one thing that I think that it has brought forward, at least in my own self, is that it has caused me to educate myself more on this idea of what privilege is. And I've taken classes now trying to learn about this type of situation. I had no idea. One of the things that I did, I was in one meeting with a friend of mine when we were little kids, and he's of color. And I had no idea. It was heartbreaking to me, his experience as opposed to my experience. And so this has been a really good lesson, like an in-your-face lesson. And it's important that we continue the education process. I know the city is working on that, fire department, the city of Eureka, even Eureka City Schools. Thank you.
I muted myself there. Mike Newman, 1 minute.
Thank you. Part of what I have brought forth towards the community is inclusiveness of all types, sizes, brain trusts, people. People are important. People have every type of gift to give. And I'm certain Josiah had gifts to give our community as well as others that are missing. It is sad that it has happened. I will work forward to make sure that things like this are not happening more or swept under the rug.
Okay, we're gonna go to our next question, which is from the North Coast People's Alliance.
Good evening. My name is Caroline Griffith, and I am asking this question on behalf of the North Coast People's Alliance. During the pandemic, the Board of Supervisors quickly adapted to virtual meetings, opening up a new avenue of public engagement by allowing constituents to participate in meetings remotely. Though hybrid meetings, which will hopefully continue, have led to an increase in engagement, there are still many people, including working people, students whose schedules conflict with meetings, parents of young children, and residents who don't speak English as a first language, who are unable to participate in these public meetings. If elected, what will you do to make yourself available to all of your constituents and to hear their thoughts and concerns outside of Board of Supervisors meetings? Thank you.
Okay, and with this one, we are going to start with you, Kim Bergel. 2 minutes.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that we do have a hybrid now. I would like to also see, the meetings be changed sometimes. As a single mom, it can be very difficult to get out in the middle of the day when you're working to go to these meetings. And I've heard that a lot from people, just general population that are working as well. So hybrid or not hybrid, I think that, having some meetings in the evening would be critical and helpful. As for what I would do to engage with the population, well, that's one of the gifts I have, actually. One of the things that I really love is that I'm out in the community. I'm working with people. I'm meeting people. I go to cleanups. I go to dances. I go to, open meetings. I go to protests. I go everywhere because I want to get a feel for what people are thinking and what they're interested in and what changes they want to see. And by doing that, I get a really great a great I get to see a lot of different perspectives from all the different areas that I've been involved in. And I will continue to do that. I will continue to show up and be there for people. I will continue to have my phone number blasted all over the city of Eureka and the region, which it is already. I'm accessible. I have been the whole time I've been on council. I'm willing to work with people. And I think people in our community know that about me. And that is one of my great strengths.
Mike Newman, 2 minutes.
Thank you. I think the pandemic brought forth alternatives that were on the verge of being used, but had just not been brought forth because, change, unless necessary, is sometimes very hard. I would endeavor to keep the hybrid model working as much as possible. We are using it at the Planning Commission level, have been since we returned back into the chambers. It brings forth comments and perspectives from many different folks that could not drive there. It helps to have that accessibility, and I will endeavor to keep going with my phone number is public, and I take those phone calls, and I'm willing to meet with people. I will continue to do that. I would also be willing to meet on a regular basis with the community with certain projects as they're going along. It's available because the video, Zoom, or whatever else may come along makes it available.
30 seconds.
You still have to do business for the most part during the daytime, but I would take a look at looking at once in a while to have meetings in the evening, or if there's a special meeting like something big that's affecting many, many people, to bring it into both daytime and evening time so that more can participate and make their feelings and thoughts known.
Natalie Arroyo, 2 minutes.
Thank you. I agree that in some ways, the pandemic has introduced us all to new tools, and that has been, to our benefit. I think the use of virtual meetings is one of many tools to have robust public engagement. It offers an interactive and engaging opportunity, and I think there's ways to make it more interactive and engaging. I've been teaching online for the last a little over 2 years, and holding a lot of community meetings online as well, and really using outside tools and interactive platforms to make it more fun and to hear from more people so that more have a voice. I also think when we return to having more large in-person meetings, design charrettes, things like that, participatory budgeting, which was mentioned earlier, that we can do things like offer childcare, have food available for people so that they can come after work and get a meal and make sure their kids are taken care of, as well as language interpretation for Spanish and Hmong speakers in our community. I think that's incredibly important. And I've worked over the years quite a bit to increase resources for interpretation and translation in our community. So when we talk about hearing from everyone, I really want to hear from everyone. And often we hear from the most privileged in our community, and we struggle to hear from those who, have limited access to public resources or private resources in their own lives. And then, of course, I'll be available for one-on-one meetings. I always really enjoy meeting people in person, and it's been great to meet people in their neighborhoods during the campaign.
Kim Bergel, 1 minute.
Thank you. Well, I would just like to say that, I've been involved, I return your calls. I will continue to return your calls. Invite me to your meetings. I'm happy to come. I remember so many times that going to neighborhood watch meetings, just all kinds of meetings that people invited me to, just so that I could be educated on what issues were happening in their area. And it's great to meet people in that, kind of where they're at and understand kind of what they're going through. I think that helps to make a better, well-rounded decision. And I was thinking too, as far as the translation, it seems that, with all this new technology, there may even be a way at some point to have through closed captioning some type of translation for folks to be able to participate in the meeting as far as listening, and then hopefully being able to have some translation happening. They do it at events all the time. I don't know why we couldn't do it at a Board of Soups meeting.
Mike Newman, 1 minute.
Thank you. Translation is important, and that helps bring participation levels up to where you get ideas of all types. It's important to hear that. It's important to see and understand and explore those things. I'm in agreement on that we can work a little bit more that way. There are some pockets around. I would be willing to meet with those neighbors, those diverse groups that can't speak English, that have maybe somebody right there that can interpret for what they're saying to me, and then I can reverberate that back in English, and then they can translate it, and we can exchange ideas. I would be happy to participate in that. Closed captioning might be something that we can do with the hybrid meetings.
And Natalie Arroyo, 1 minute.
Thank you. I believe there's so much more we can do to really address the community engagement piece. Civic education, we need a lot of work in that area. I mean, I think so many people just really don't understand how public meetings work and what their opportunities are to give input. And it's tough when we're doing all the day in, day out business of government to really make sure that people understand how they can engage. But I think that's our duty, and I'm willing to do more of that. I also, when I think about, virtual participation as one tool, I think about people working from home and the opportunity that presents. And that's been something new that has allowed people to support their families and contribute to, improvements in the area of climate change. And so I'm really excited to explore that too. But I'm definitely dedicated to making sure we continue to have hybrid public meetings.
Excellent. And our next question is coming to us from Queer Humboldt.
Hi, I'm Lark Doolin. I'm the Executive Director for Queer Humboldt, and our question is this. If you are elected, how will you make our community safer for gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, non-binary, two-spirit, and queer community members, both adults and youth?
Okay, and we start this question off with you, Mike Newman, 2 minutes.
Well, I believe that every human being deserves equal access to everything. I am not sure exactly the scope of what is being asked for there, but I do know that the law applies equally to everyone. When people are picked upon or discriminated against, that's against the law, and that is not healthy for anybody. I'm in a area here where I'm in an office. I'm out and around. I do have friends of all types and all persuasions. I don't view them any differently, and I would love to hear. I wouldn't love to hear. I would be open to hear if there are problems going on in the county as a supervisor, so that those can be addressed and taken care of in the right fashion. That's what I'm committed to doing.
Natalie Arroyo, same question, 2 minutes.
Thank you for the question, and I appreciate how broad it is, and I appreciate how inclusive it can be. So, I want to first and foremost say queer rights are human rights, and it's incredibly important that we represent the LGBTQIA plus community members that we have, and welcome more people into our community. So I think that can take the simple form of updating our forms and paperwork at the county level. I understand that, not every form has even really been updated to today's standards. So that's one opportunity to make people feel seen and heard and included in our government processes. Support for gender neutral restrooms is incredibly easy. I think that, we can just have more restrooms that everyone can use that are single stall restrooms. That seems like a no-brainer. And for there to be support for people using the facilities that align with their gender identity, modeling use of pronouns in public meetings and, out in our community helps people feel seen, and, supporting the rights of our community members in a wide variety of ways, from using true names and identities to much more. So I also think we need to celebrate, so many of the times in our community, we focus on the things that have been harmful to people, and there's certainly value in doing that and in recognizing and doing better. But I also think we need to celebrate with the queer community, and that to me means, more government support for events and groups that do this great work in our community.
Thank you. Kim Bergel, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Well, the first thing that came to my mind when you were talking, Lark, was the anti-bullying campaign that we have going on at the high school. There is a zero tolerance for bullying, and there are repercussions. There's a lot of education that goes on around that as well. And I think that's critical. We need to start with when folks are young. I mean, certainly we can change what we can change now, but we've got to start when our kids are young and learning how to process and how to engage with people as human beings, because all people do have value. I think what would be most important in this situation would be, I would need to know and have you tell me, what do you need? What can I do to be of support to you? At Eureka High, we now have 2 non-gender bathrooms, and it's been a real big thing, but the line is incredibly long. So there's definitely work to be done in that arena. And I love the idea of celebration. I love to celebrate anyway. If I get to dress up, it's even more fun. But I love the idea of the celebration. I love going to Pride, and I love just the whole fun and that kind of thing that goes with all of that. And I think, with inclusion, it's important as supervisors to model this the kind of behavior that we want to see. And so
30 seconds.
I really appreciate the question, and I look forward to hearing from you so that I can know exactly what you need and how I can work with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Newman, 1 minute.
Well, I think that the main thing to add is that as I had mentioned before, discrimination and persecution is not tolerated in my book. And I would be looking into that. If there is something coming about, please bring it to me.
Natalie Arroyo, 1 minute.
Thank you. Lark, I think it's really important that we acknowledge that, of course, we don't support hate, but we do want to provide overt support to queer folks and to people of color in our community. It's more far-reaching than just the queer community, and there's a lot of overlap there too. Mental health for folks, who suffer the consequences of ostracization in the community or in their families. I mean, that's really important to ensure that there are dedicated resources for mental health. Providing education for, families in our community, those who are learning and want to do better, but need the chance to do that. I think that's really important, and that's an opportunity for partnership with many county departments as well as Queer Humboldt. And then really supporting businesses in the community and students and student serving organizations as we attract more and more students to our community and have a more queer friendly community, throughout the county is really important.
Okay, Kim Bergel, 1 minute.
There you go. Well, again, I really appreciate this topic. I think that inclusion is critical, and I hope that you will tell me what you need and how I can be of support. I look forward to the changes that are happening. And, the thing about about us as humans is I think we're afraid of things we don't understand. And the more that we educate ourselves and the more that we learn and the more we have a willingness to look at things differently, we can make these changes and we can be supportive. And so, Lark, thank you very much. You probably have my number. Thanks.
Okay, we're going to go to our next question, which is from Healthcare for All Humboldt Physicians for a National Health Program.
My name is Patty Harvey. I'm co-director of the Humboldt chapters of Healthcare for All California and Physicians for a National Health Program. Humboldt County spends upward of $20 million a year on private corporate health insurance plans for its employees, funds that could potentially be used for so many other pressing local needs. First question, do you support a universal single-payer healthcare system that would cut out insurance middlemen and eliminate this wasteful cost burden, as well as provide lifetime health care for all residents at a substantially lower cost than we all now pay? If so, number two, what other benefits do you see for our area with such a plan for individuals, families, businesses, and government? And three, in your role as a Humboldt County Supervisor, what steps would you take to promote a single-payer healthcare system? Thank you so much.
Okay, and the first candidate we have for this 2-minute is Natalie Arroyo.
Thank you, Patty. In short, I do support single-payer healthcare, and I think it's really important that we continue to advocate for this in our community. We've seen the strain of being a remote community and the difficulty that causes for both attracting medical care providers and specialists, but also medical administration. It takes an enormous part of the workload. And it's incredibly important that we attract and retain physicians and specialists and nurses and support staff, all who can support the needs of our community without having to spend as much time, trying to navigate the increasingly complex billing challenges that there are. So I think this could save us a lot of money in the long term. I think it's going to require a lot of political will, again, to push forward with this. And it's going to happen above our level, really, frankly, but we're key players in this, and we can tell the story of what it's like in Humboldt and what we experience here, how difficult it is to attract and retain providers and how difficult it is to get medical care. Not to mention, we spend, tens of thousands of dollars on support services, including medical care for houseless community members every year per person. So, and that is not to put the stigma or the blame on them. That is, to say that we can save ourselves a lot of money and, by integrating these services and being cooperative about it. So I think that's an incredible opportunity, and I look forward to helping support it.
Thank you. Kim Bergel.
Thank you. So yes, I absolutely support single-payer healthcare, universal healthcare. I've stood in solidarity for the time that I've been on council, since I've known about this issue, and done the things that I can at a council level, as well as just as a personal level, to bring forward information and education and attention to this very important issue. And the thing about the way the current thing runs is that there are many people out there, many people without insurance who won't go to the doctor. They can't afford to go to the doctor. They won't go, and they could have something really debilitating happening with them and don't find out early. Some of us are privileged enough to have insurance, but we can get that support. But somebody who's really sick and doesn't know that they're really sick, they just know that they're kind of sick. They won't go to the doctor because they can't afford it, because it's not okay for them to do that. They can't, it's too taxing. And so I think it's really important for us to continue to advocate for this for people, so that we can have the best kind of healthcare that we can have for everybody, not just people who have insurance and that can afford it, and not just people who cannot afford it and have special programs. this healthcare needs to be for everybody. And, you know, so I think some of the positive impacts that it will have is eliminating those costs for insurance. You're going to take that money and you're going to be able to put it in other areas that could really be a benefit to not only healthcare, but other areas in our region as well. And, you know, as I've heard here tonight, you know, as a board, we really don't have the control over that. That's not our way. We can't pass it, but we would like to.
Sorry about that. Mike Newman, same question on healthcare for all.
Well, it's not a simple question or answer. This is a very in-depth look at healthcare system that is important to everybody. Healthcare for all sounds good, but there are trade-offs on that as well. That would be more lengthy times to try and get to see a provider, and some other things there more in depth that I'm not going to even start the tip of the iceberg there. When you give the power to some other party, such as government, then you get a bureaucracy that sometimes takes a lot longer to get things done than in the private industry. And I think with the redo of healthcare, it helped even out a lot of the rules and other things throughout the US for access to healthcare. When you bring it over and look at things, I think single payer healthcare is a lose proposition for most of the general public. We do have a base plan available that we all pay for in taxes. And if we go to a single payer, there is, you know, arguments both for and against about the payment of that single payer healthcare system as to what those taxes would become and what could be taken away so that maybe workers' comp would be combined into it. So there's.
Sorry about that. Natalie Arroyo, 1 minute.
I've seen firsthand some of the flaws of state-run healthcare, and I will say we can learn from those. You know, I think this is good for businesses. It's good for businesses to not have to navigate and pay for the extremely complex and expensive cost of healthcare, and it's good for government. So I'm proud to have the support and the endorsement of Healthcare for All Humboldt in this election, and strong relationships and endorsement from our state and federal representatives. And, you know, I ask each of you to think about what it would be like to not have to fear, you know, the potential debilitation of enormous medical bills when you think about this issue.
Kim Bergel, 1 minute.
So I just wanted to say that, you know, most of the people that go broke from medical bills are people that are insured. You know, single payer will address this. So employer-based insurance is just, it's outdated. You know, universal access, yeah, it might make longer waits for some of us, for the privileged, but many people are already having long waits, and many people don't even have access. So the good news about single payer is nobody could cut in line, and everybody would get equal access, and that is something that is necessary and important.
Mike Newman, 1 minute.
I'm just going to defer on this one right here.
Okay, I definitely want to give each candidate a moment to share their final thoughts. I believe we have enough time for everyone to do 2.5 minutes. And I believe we started with you, Mike Newman. So we'll go again in alphabetical order and start with you, Natalie Arroyo.
Thank you. Well, I want to take the opportunity to first say thanks to KMUD for hosting. I really appreciate your staff for doing this and organizing it, and all the organizations that have participated and come up with such thoughtful questions. I want to share a few of the endorsements that speak to my very strong relationships in this community and the work that I've done and my dedication to public process. So those include the Yurok Tribe, the Times Standard, Congressman Jared Huffman, Assemblymember Jim Wood, the Humboldt County Democratic Central Committee, the Humboldt Progressive Democrats, the Green Party of Humboldt County, the Central Labor Council, Humboldt and Del Norte County Central Labor Council, Building and Construction Trades Council of Humboldt and Del Norte counties, and many local medical workers, business owners, teachers, and lots of our friends and neighbors. And I want to impart that, the opportunity for change in our county is now. We have the opportunity to change the direction of the Board of Supervisors and shift us to, rowing in a common direction towards something strategic and cohesive. I know during the pandemic, it's been challenging to identify a strategic direction, but I think I can help to bring that. I would be our first Latina supervisor, and I think that's meaningful when it comes to representation in our community. And I invite you to visit arroyoforsupervisor.com. That's Arroyo, F-O-R, supervisor.com. There you can reach out to me and learn more about my position on a wide variety of issues. You can also follow me on Facebook or Instagram. And I look forward to hearing from people in the community as they consider who to vote for. I know folks got their ballots in the mail today, so the time is now to think about your vote and to act on your political priorities. And thank you for listening.
Thank you for joining us. Kim Bergel, your outro, you have 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. I too want to thank everybody for coming tonight. There were some really great questions, and there are some really important and critical ideas and problems that were brought up, and I look forward to working on those. What I can say is that, COVID, one of the benefits of COVID, I guess, is that it's given us a real rare opportunity. We're at a point right now where we can really change the direction in which we're going. We can really thoughtfully and, specifically choose to go where we want to go. And what I mean by that is that, we've all been kind of on the same playing field now, and we've had time to think about what our priorities are and how we want to live and what we want for our community. And so now is a critical time that we work together to put those things into action. As you know, I've been on the city council 7.5 years. I have been accessible. I've been involved. I love hanging out with my community. I love my community. And I love Humboldt County. I've lived here my whole life. I've raised my kids here, and I want them to stay here. I listen to folks, and I think that that's really an important piece. There are many things that I don't have all the answers to as we're having this conversation, but what I can tell you is that my time on council, I've done the research, I've gone to work, I've connected with people who have made things work for the situations that we were working on. And I'm really grateful and thankful for that. And I think that we will continue as a county to move forward in a positive direction. It's a choice, and we can make that choice, but we've got to work together to make it happen. So again, I really just appreciate the time here. And I can tell you one of the things that I love, I had a person on my, I have a lady on my endorsements who, we did a panhandling assessment with her, and she was pregnant, and I got to babysit for her kid and all these things. And now she's working at the county. She's living unsubsidized, and she's doing great. And that is the efforts and the gifts of being in office, is that we get to make small impacts in people's lives, as well as make policy that are going to impact it on a greater level. So thank you. I really appreciate the time I've had so far.
Thank you very much, Kim Bergel. And Mike Newman, your closing remarks with 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Lauren. I really appreciate KMUD sponsoring this forum. It's important to get it out to the public so that differences can be seen in the candidates here. I think there are some wide differences here. I believe that decisions of the leadership have consequences, many of them long-term, that are not realized until after the fact. and looking backwards, you can see where some decisions weren't that well thought through. Government, is the one that does not make businesses survive. They help them thrive. They help set the tone, and businesses are important to have, especially here in Humboldt County, where we're cut off from other urban areas that are close by. We're on our own pretty much up here. So it's important to attract businesses that will pay well to the workers working. We are in a transition right now with the Cal Poly and with CR. Part of my workforce development time being on that was to put more certification classes into play at College of the Redwoods, asking the leadership there to look towards bringing in classes and other types of learning processes instead of just academics. So we do have more of those, like in truck driving, carpentry, electrical, plumbing. It's very important. The workforce development helped fund money to help with the high schools in the area for those types of certifications. So what you're deciding tonight, well, not tonight, but in your mind here until the vote comes. So you may have your absentee ballot now, but you will most certainly be voting June 7th or before for a leader that will be leading us into the next part of this century.
Okay, that concludes the KMUD News Candidate Forum. I want to thank all three of you for participating as you are in the bidding for Humboldt County's 4th Supervisorial District. To our listeners, if you've missed this forum or other previous forums, you can find an audio recording on the KMUD archives, which is at kmud.org, or a video that has been posted on the KMUD News Facebook page. You can also visit our SoundCloud. Just search soundcloud.com/KMUD News, where we have also uploaded the past forums with Humboldt County Superior Court Judge and Humboldt County District Attorney candidates. I would like to thank our engineer, Javier Rodriguez, our tech support, Ryan Christensen, our timekeeper, Stella Gerkins, and Caroline Griffith for helping to organize this event that gives the public the opportunity to participate in democracy. I would also like to note we have multiple candidate forums coming up next Monday on May 16th, and the following Monday, May 23rd, we will have Mendocino County candidates for supervisorial districts, starting with District 5 and District 3. On May 18th, that is next Wednesday, we will have candidates for Humboldt County's Auditor Controller. All of these forums will take place from 6 to 8 p.m. And of course, if you appreciate the services KMUD provides, please consider making a safe and secure donation on our website, kmud.org. I've been your host, Lauren Schmitt. Everyone, please stay safe. Thank you.